Hello everyone, this is the Pain 105, and today this will be part 1 of the Resident Evil storyline, or lore, as the internet likes to call it. I got most of my information from the Resident Evil wiki, and I decided to do a series on this because why the hell not? So, episode 1 is going to be about the virus that started it all. And it's not the T-virus, but that will be a later episode. We're going to be talking about the Generator virus. The Generator virus itself is actually the basis of all the viruses that's been created throughout the Resident Evil franchise. The virus itself, in its natural state when it was first discovered, was known to give people mutagenic properties, which means when they were researching it, and by the way, the people that were researching it were Oswald E. Spencer, James Marcus, and Edward Ashford. They were the 3 founding members of the Umbrella pharmaceutical conglomerate. They were trying to find ways to help promote healthy human functions, to help extend human life, or the life expectancy. But they heard stories about the Generator virus. And this virus was only found in a small little village in Africa. And it was only harvested from a small flower that's only found there. Well, they found out that this flower could only be grown in a certain way. And it was only found growing in an abandoned temple underground underneath that village. When they were studying it and researching it, they found out that the local tribal people that lived there, when they drank the tea that was made with this flower, it made them more healthy, it gave them more stamina, it helped bulk up their strength, it just made them overall more better than human. As researchers, all 3 of them were thinking, hey, why don't we take samples of this back to America and study it? Well, by the time they got their samples and went back to study it in their research labs at Raccoon City, they found out, well, it's now doing the opposite effect. When they were testing it on lab rats, it was killing them within the first 2 minutes of onset injections. After a few months of testing this virus, after changing it through bioengineering, they hit brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. They couldn't figure it out. The only conclusion that all 3 of them came up with is it had to be something with the environment. Something about that area that altered the virus to make it do what it did there. So, after going back to Africa and killing and wiping out that tribe, they set up a research facility there and started studying the flower in its natural state. And all 3 of those researchers, they took samples of the virus and they spread out and did their own research from that area point on. It was from that point on, Edward Spencer, he had a few of his people doing some research on it, trying to find ways to improve on it. And then James Marcus, he was doing research on his end. Edward Ashford, he had just started a research facility in Antarctica, and he was doing research on his end. And they were all branching off from different areas, but they were trying to improve the overall design of the virus. Once they got the virus in its natural basis state, they wanted to conduct human trials. They wanted to see the effects for itself. Well, the first human test subject at the time was the wife of George Trevor. Now, George Trevor was the guy that was building Spencer's mansion, the same mansion that you traverse and solve puzzles in RE1. Spencer ordered one of his people to go in and give her the injection. Well, come to find out, after half an hour of taking the virus into her body, she became violently ill, sick, and she died. After finding out that she was the first test subject to fail, Spencer kept pushing, hey, find another person, test the virus on them. Well, since she died, they tested it on her daughter, Lisa Trevor. And just so happens, when she got the injection of the virus into her body, she was, like anything else, one out of maybe 100 million people that survived the effects of the virus and bonded with it. And the progenitor virus gave her the same physical faculties that they seen in their initial first sighting. Well, there was still one side effect of it. It made her crazy. It made her psychotic. So Spencer had his people to order her to be locked up, to be barricaded and pretty much shackled under the basement area of the mansion for further testing and research. And they still kept doing more research on the virus to find out the main faculties of what made it work and how to promote a better outcome for it. But it's like anything else, they kept hitting a brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. They kept hitting dead ends. It wasn't until both Edward Ashford and James Marcus found other ways to alter the progenitor virus itself to make it more functional. Later on, James Marcus, he was one of the original founding members of Umbrella, and he was also researching the virus itself. He found out that he could bind the progenitor virus with the DNA of a leech. He was hoping that through that process he was able to improve on the design of the natural mutagens of the virus to help promote healthier function and hopefully kill away some of the negative side effects with it. Well, in doing so, he discovered a T virus. T standing for tyrant. After testing the virus on the dogs in the training facility, they found out that what it ended up doing is it ceased and stopped all motor functions, all respiratory functions, pretty much killing any of the test subjects involved. Well, when they tested it on the dogs as test subjects, they seen the dogs had died. But in doing so, a few hours later, dogs came back to life, and they became highly more aggressive. That's when they first found out that the T virus had reanimation properties. Well, later on down through the storyline, Edward Ashford somehow got his hands on a sample of the T virus. And in doing so, he spliced it down to where it was back to the progenitor virus. It was back to its base form. Instead of using leech DNA, he found a virus that he was able to harvest out of an ant queen from a species of ants that he had been researching on. This ant queen had a virus in her. When he was doing research on that, he had the idea of doing more research with that virus and mixing it with the progenitor virus. Well, in doing so, he created the T Veronica virus. And that's how that virus came out to be for his research. The progenitor virus itself at its base form was supposed to be originally designed to help promote human growth and human healthy functions. But in doing so, they were able to discover a way to make weapons. And by weapons, I mean BOWs, bioorganic weapons. They could take any organic life form with any alterations of the progenitor virus itself, and they were able to use it to make weapons that could be deployed for combat. So Spencer came up with the idea, and he wanted to do more research on that, for that field. Well, over time, the progenitor virus was heavily studied, and it had more funding for research. But as over time come, they stopped doing research on the virus itself and started using it more as a base to create other viruses. And in doing so, they were able to create the T virus, the G virus, the T Veronica, the T Abyss, the C virus, and later on, I believe in Revelations 2, they came up with the T Philopos virus, I believe it's pronounced. I could be wrong. But overall, eventually, the only one person that was able to bond with the virus in its natural state was Lisa Trevor. And that's only because she was that one person out of 100 million percentage that had a successful rate for it. They later on did research to find out that for those who had that same natural antibody for it, they could be classified as a tyrant, which goes back to the T virus. And if you had the DNA functions that can make you into a tyrant, your DNA was sought out because your DNA was the one that could bond with the virus more easily because you had natural antibodies for it. And that's the basic overall story for the progenitor virus. This was pretty much my first episode for the RE lore story, and I plan on doing more in the future. I won't be talking about just the viruses, but I'll also be going into the main characters, the lore. I'll also be going into some of the reasons why the people in the storyline did what they did, and things like that, etc. But this will conclude the first episode of the RE1 storyline lore, and I hope to do these hopefully at least one every 3 days, maybe one every 5 days, pretty much at least once a week. If I get one of these out once a week, then I should be good, and everything should be good and crystal. But I'm going to be doing more research on my end to keep y'all informed, and I hope you found this informative. And with that being said, I am the Pain 105. This will conclude this episode, and for the remainder of time, I'm just going to let you enjoy this remaining video of mercenary combat. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoy.